Hello everyone, this is Daz, and this week's discussion is about frequency, sound, rhythm, and the spiritual nature of it. The inspiration came from a dream that I had a day ago. I'll explain the dream and then I'll get into why I'm talking about this and the importance of understanding frequency. I dreamt that I was laying in bed and I could hear my dad up making coffee. I heard him stirring, and when coffee's made, you can always hear the spoon hitting against the coffee mug, and it kept repeating itself. I didn't think much of it because I smelled the roasted coffee beans and I thought I was truly awake. And then I knocked out in the dream, so it was a dream within a dream. I was standing outside of my house on the driveway, and as I stood out there, my car was warming up so my sister could go driving. And as I was waiting to get inside, because for whatever reason I was on the outside, I noticed a bunch of people just walking around outside. Now, mind you, this was 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning, so it would be weird for everyone to be walking around the subdivision just randomly. It was like Halloween when people are just walking around in the middle of the dark because they're trick-or-treating. And suddenly this blue truck with a messed up side and a missing door with no driver just sped by and almost hit my car. And my car started moving on its own like it was rolling back. And I managed to get inside and stop it. Then my sister gets in, and as we fire up the car to go and we're backing out of the driveway and starting to drive up the hill, it's like the car turns invisible and it's like we're floating in air. If you've ever seen SpongeBob with Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, they have the invisible mobile. That's basically what's happening. We were sitting in air and floating. And suddenly I see this woman walking by. She's very young, maybe like 18, 19, 20. And she looks very confused and distraught, and it's almost as if she's looking for a baby or a child that she lost. And even though I'm in this invisible vehicle, she just walks right through the space between my sister and I, which would be the glove compartment. And I immediately just feel this strange feeling when she walks through our car. Like, first off, how is she able to do that? And second off, she's not really human. She's a spirit. She's a demon, actually. She didn't, have her eyes roll back or bare her teeth or anything, but I knew better. So I started praying. And next thing you know it, we pass this man who's walking. And next thing you know it, he gets on all fours and he just starts, running like some kind of animal up this hill. But, it's a new big green hill that appeared. And I woke up praying, feeling like I was going into sleep paralysis. Now, it's been a while since I've had sleep paralysis. I don't really have it that often, which is great. But what it showed me when I reflected back on this dream was it all began with the sound of my dad tapping the spoon against the coffee mug. And it reminded me of the movie Get Out. And so I thought about the rhythm and sounds. And even going back to when I took a trip down to Pensacola, Florida, I passed through New Orleans. And in New Orleans, I walked the French Quarters, and there were a bunch of children out drumming. And I remember telling my mother, something about that disturbs me. And I realized because it's a ritual. In a lot of religions you'll find, including Christianity with praise and worship, that drumming is used as a form of praise, worship, reverence, but also for some conjuring the spirits. And so just quickly, because I like dictionary definitions of everything, a rhythm is a strong, regular, repeated pattern of movement or sound. And a frequency is the rate of which something occurs or is repeated over a particular period of time or in a given sample. So even though everywhere we go, there's not music playing, which actually, in a way, when you think about going to a grocery store, a shopping mall, whether you're buying clothing or something else, they play music in the background to make you more comfortable so you can buy. But also, it has a frequency. So many of us are tuning into frequencies we're not even aware of, and we have to be mindful of that, because one thing I've noticed with my journey in learning about the supernatural in relation to good and evil is sometimes the enemy would use me having a really bad day to get into my head, to make me feel bitterness, hatred, unforgiveness, condemnation, just any negative feelings he'd feed off of. And I mentioned this in the video I did on be careful with your emotions that I did last week. But he also has used different sins I've committed as doorways. But sometimes when none of that is working, because I'm not going to lie, I've had a rough last couple of weeks from all the drama surrounding the elections and the people around me freaking out to just personal family and life troubles. And just to let you know, I started a devotional I'm going to be pulling from daily experiences as well as what the Father teaches me and using it to encourage. And I'll be working on those because one of the ways he speaks to me is through speaking to others as well. So you can check that out on my blog, and I'm going to post it to the community tab each day that I do it. I'm hoping for every other day if I can keep it up. But going back on topic, I realized that he couldn't get in that way, so he had to do something ritualistic. And the ritualistic thing he did was he created a frequency or a sound in my dream, a beat, a rhythm. Some people think I'm crazy for saying this, but I feel like when I did the video, someone texted you how to end it, I still believe to this day someone had tried to hex me. And I believe through faith, prayer, praise, worship, and so many people poured out saying it helped them, but also people prayed for me and life improved greatly. I feel like I'm under attack again from people who are working sorcery. It's a high time of ritual. And so with that being said, the reason I think this is not just because I had a creepy dream. I actually had an accident on Thursday of last week where I fell down out of the shower. First off, the water heater went out and the water was freezing cold. Then I get out and there's nothing on the ground to make me slip. And I fall and I smash my back and my head into the floor. But I don't have health insurance because I'm 26 now. And my whole work situation is kind of complicated right now. So I'm just relying on God about, having faith and healing that way. But yeah, it's been a rough time and just a lot of emotional and verbal attacks from people close to me and just a lot going on. But I thank God for everything and I count each blessing by the day. Getting back on topic, this is why it's been reminding me spiritual warfare. So let me quickly get into a couple of excerpts from some websites I found on the rhythm and the importance of drumming during a ritual. So in Santeria, which is a form of witchcraft often found in the Caribbean, drumming and dancing in Santeria aren't just for entertainment. They're religious rituals performed to honor the Orichas and to entice them to interact with humans through transpossession. During a tambor drumming ceremony, the sacred bata drums are played. These are 3 hourglass-shaped drums, each with 2 heads. They rest across the player's lap in a horizontal position and played with both hands. These drums have been ceremoniously prepared and charged with the spirits of the drum, called Ana, and they're only used for religious purposes. They're considered holy objects because they communicate with the Orichas. Drummers must undergo intensive training and special ceremonies in order to have the right to play them. In traditional Santeria's communities, the drums are played only by the men. The largest drum is called the Eva, or mother drum. It's the leader and calls for changes in rhythms and songs as the ceremony progresses. The middle-sized drums is called the Itole, and it carries on a conversation with the Aya drum to create a complex rhythm. The smallest drum is the Okokolu and maintains the underlying beat of the syncopated rhythms. For those unfamiliar with African-style drumming, the complexity of the rhythms can be astounding. They reproduce Tongo language of the Yoruba people, speaking to the Orikas in their native tongue. Generally, a singer known as the Akpuan performs with the drummers. He or she acts as a master of ceremonies and leads the call and response singing of assembled worshippers. So the importance again of even within pagan societies, worship and praise, which is something as believers we should engage in on a regular basis, just like prayer and reading the word and just keeping a relationship with God as well. And I apologize for my horrible pronunciation of those words. Let's see. The next excerpt is about voodoo, and again I'll leave the links in the description box below. Rhythmic drumming forms an essential musical accompaniment to all voodoo ceremonies. Each of the Iwa, the spirits, has his or her own rhythm. There are slow rhythms for the cool Rada Iwa and fast rhythms for the hot Petro Iwa. Drumming stimulates the dancers and helps them to enter into a trance. The drum invokes the Iwa to descend to the temple. Different drums are used in different rituals. The largest as to are only employed in the most important ceremonies. They are then consecrated and given a specific name. Only the best drummers are allowed to play these drums. The spirits of the drums, Hantor, takes possession of these master drummers. And it's interesting here that we see that each spirit has its own rhythm. So I just wonder how much of modern music's rhythms that we get have been inspired by different entities' rhythm that they have. And then this last excerpt I'll share with you. As I watched the screen, I could see the dancers leaping higher and higher. They soared into the air, headdresses bobbing and waving in unison as the sound of the drum resonated through the crowd. As the music overtook them, their eyes became glassy, and they entered into a trance. Later, after the dust had settled and they had finished their sacred ceremony, they explained that the combination of the drums and the dancing was powerful enough to summon the spirits that would take over their entire bodies, connecting them with what they believed to be the divine. Their experience isn't unique. Humans have always used music as a tool of transcendence. It can take us to a place outside of the humdrum of our daily task. It allows us a glimpse into the spiritual world. Its power can stir the deepest emotions and speak in a language more effective than our words. From the complexity of the talking drums of West Africa to the simplicity of a child's first piano solo, music is beautiful in its ability to connect us to each other and that outside of ourselves. As musicians, sometimes we can underestimate the power of what we do, especially as a Christian musician. We can sometimes disregard the innate spirituality of our craft. Sometimes in the melee of practices, riffs, runs, mic checks, and vocal exercises, we can lose sight that this is primarily not a technical task, but a spiritual one. The notion of invoking the spirits doesn't belong solely to non-Christian religions. We have a musical legacy of invoking the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, through our playing and our singing. As we play the piano, pluck the strings of the guitar, even beat the drum. We believe not just our music, but our very lives are a vessel for the Spirit to take over and touch not only us, but others who hear the music. The story of David and Saul is commonly used as an example of the power of music. In the Bible, an evil spirit is tormenting Saul, and David's harp playing is powerful enough to ward away the spirit. We often focus on the power of the music, but the real power in the music David played, but in the life David lived. The spirit he invoked was able to live in him and play through him because the vessel was not only open to being used, but a familiar place for the Spirit to dwell. David's invocation of the Holy Spirit was not simply when he played his harp, but began in everyday practices of being a simple shepherd. Before his harp, there was his staff and his rod and his shepherd's cloak. We learn to be an instrument in the monotony of our everyday life, not the excitement of a performance or a concentrated craft of a studio piece. More powerful than any instrument or any voice is the life that is lived by the musician. As we practice our craft and use the power of music to touch lives, while we recognize the innate beauty of the art alone, we can always remember that for us, our primary instrument is ourselves. And it's only as we master that instrument that we can come closer to making music that is in harmony with heaven. So that post was about the power of praise, and it was more leaning to praise and worship musicians, but even for us everyday people who may not be musicians, just the power of praise and worship of our voice in the presence of the Holy Spirit. And, that's something I struggle with sometimes doing is praise and worship. Like I'll read the word, I'll pray, but always making time, and also just remembering that Satan once was the leader of worship. So he understands the power in the dark side of invoking. And it's so important we are careful about, like I mentioned last week, what we let in, the channels we tune into, the frequencies, what we let in our ears. He's the prince and power of the airwaves. So just remember that and be mindful. And I believe if you incorporate praise into your life, you'll always, like David, of course, with living the right kind of life, the Holy Spirit will be present with you. So even if you're surrounded by a lot of debauchery and a lot of bad energy, a lot of bad frequencies or negative frequencies, it won't have the same effect on you as it would for someone who's unguarded. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But I just wanted to share this with you as part of Spiritual Warfare 101 and also as another word of encouragement. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care and God bless.